Using the fact that I squared equals -1, we're going to use that to simplify powers that are bigger than I squared and see what we can simplify them to. So if you have an even power, we're going to rewrite whatever the even power is as I squared to the, and then whatever 2 times x is, so it equals the power you started with. Once we do that, we'll do the same thing we did before and cross out the I squared and replace it with -1. Then we'll just type in -1 to whatever power we have, and it will give us the final answer. If we have an odd power, we'll do the same thing except for, so that we can write our answer using I squared, we're going to pull an I out in front. And then we'll continue the rest of the way. We're just going to keep writing an I, and then at the very end we'll put the I last. So let's try some of these so you know what I mean. What we're going to do is rewrite I to the 12th as I to the 2nd to the, what's 12 divided by 2? 12 divided by 2 is 6. That way 2 times 6 equals 12, and we've just rewritten it. Next, we will cross out the I squared, and we'll have -1 to the 6th power. And you can either type that in your calculator, or you can think about having 6 -1s all multiplied together. And the number is going to be 1, obviously, because 1 times 1 times 1, keep going, it equals 1. But what we have to consider is if the sign will be positive or negative. So what will happen is 2 negatives will equal a positive, 2 negatives will equal a positive, and those 2 negatives will equal a positive. So our answer here is going to be +1. Now let's try one with an odd power. 25 is odd, so I'm going to pull one of the i's out front. In the leftovers, it's going to be I to 25 minus 1, because we pulled one out. So it's going to be I to the 24th. Now we're going to keep going and do the rest of it the way we just did the first problem with an even power. So the I out front is recopied. We're going to rewrite I to the 24th as I to the 2nd, and then what's 24 divided by 2? 12. That way 2 times 12 is 24. We still have that I out front. So next, we take the I squared and cross it out. There's the I out front. We're going to write -1 in parentheses, and it will be -1 to the 12th power. So since 12 is an even number, that means that all of the negatives will pair up, and the answer will be +1 at the end. So all of this, if you were to type that in your calculator the way you see it, it would give you +1, and then we just move that I to the end. So your answer is 1I, or you could actually just put I, and that would be it. Now what we've done is we have just put a number out in front. So this big 2 that's out front, we're just going to keep on writing it and multiply it by our final answer at the end. So there's that 2, and now we're going to deal with this I to the 23. Since that is an odd number, that means that we need to pull an I out front and then rewrite the rest of it as 23 minus 1, which is I to the 22nd. Now we will keep rewriting that -2I out front, just the way it is. I mean +2I. And we will rewrite the I to the 22nd is I squared to the, what's 22 divided by 2? 11. That way 2 times 11 is 22. So next we recopy the 2I out front. We cross out the I squared. That becomes -1. And now we have -1 to the 11th power. In this case, 11 is an odd number. So we're going to have an odd number of -1s, which means our final answer will come out to being odd. If you can't figure that out in your head, it's okay. You can still go to your calculator and type, in parentheses -1 to the 11th power, and it will tell you the answer is -1. So in front, we still have 2I. We have to multiply it by the answer to that, which is -1, and our final answer is 2 times -1, which is -2 with the I after it. In 3D, we have this -8 out front, so we're just going to write it in front of our entire answer the whole way. I to the 16th, 16 is an even number, so that means we can go directly to rewriting it as I squared to the, well, 2 times what equals 16? Or if you think about it as 16 divided by 2, that's 8. So 2 times 8 is 16. We have the -8 out front. So let's keep going. We'll recopy that -8 in front, cross out the I squared, and replace it with -1 to the 8th power. So this is what we calculate now. What's -1 to the 8th? Well, this is an even power, so all those negatives are going to pair up and turn into positive. So we're going to be left with -8 times +1, which is just -8. I really would like to see if you can try some of these all on your own, so I'll give you the final answers. For 3E, the answer is +2. 3F, you should get -3I. Number 3G is 12, and 3H is 12I. So see if you can get those to come out. Remember, those numbers in front, you just keep rewriting them all the way till the very end. All right. The last thing we're going to learn is how to divide complex numbers. So see, we have a plus bi on top, and then we're dividing it by something with an I, maybe an a plus bi on the bottom. What you do is you multiply on top and bottom, you have to be fair, by the complex conjugate of the denominator. And remember, the denominator is what's on bottom. So let's try it. To start, we need to find the complex conjugate of the bottom. So we have +5i. The complex conjugate, you flip the sign in front of the I, would be -5i. So we multiply on bottom and on top by -5i. So let's just deal with the top. Everything on the top I'm going to write in pink. We have one thing next to two things that were already there in parentheses, so we're just going to distribute. And I know it's kind of backwards distributing, but that's the way it's written. So -5 times 3 is -15 with an I, and then -5 times 10 is -50, and I times I is I squared. Next, I'll write everything on the bottom in light blue. 5 times -5 is -25, and I times I is I squared. Remember, you just treat those i's just like you would an x. So next, what we do is we simplify. So everywhere we see an I squared, we cross it out and replace it with -1. So on top that's going to happen, and on bottom that's going to happen. So let's simplify. Everything on top is going to turn into -15i, and then what's -50 times -1? That's going to turn into +50. On the bottom, we have -25 times -1. That turns into +25. The last thing we have to do is simplify the fractions, and we're going to simplify them two ways. First, we need to simplify this. So what can we reduce 15 and 25 by? Well, we can divide them both by 5, and that will give us -3i on top and 5 on bottom. And then we have to simplify the 50 divided by 25. That is 2. So we are just about to our final answer. The proper thing to do is to flip-flop these. So the real parts first, and then the imaginary parts second. So +2, and then -3i over 5. is the final answer. Let's see if you can try 4b. Your final answer should be -8 plus 3i. So see if you can get that to work out. My hint to you is the complex conjugate of the bottom. Flip the sign in front of the I. So instead of -i, you're going to be multiplying on the bottom by I and on the top by I. So that's what you will be distributing here and here. Same procedure, we just need to find the complex conjugate of the denominator and multiply on bottom and top. So this is in complex number form, the a's first and then the bi second. It's minus 2i, so we need to flip just that sign to plus 2i. So we'll write that on the bottom and we write the exact same thing on the top. So these are two FOIL problems, or if you prefer, they're two box problems. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL. So I'm going to multiply, and I'll do everything on top in light blue. 2 times 4, that's 8. 2 times 2i, that's 4i. 8i times 4 is 32i. And 8i times 2i is 16i to the second. On the bottom, we have 4 times 4, that's 16. 4 times 2i, that's plus 8i. Negative 2i times 4, that's negative 8i. And then negative 2i times positive 2i is negative 4i squared. It's really important you do all your multiplying and all your signs correct. Otherwise, your answer won't be right, obviously. All right, so let's simplify. Let's worry about the top first. We have these terms we can combine, and we will cross this I squared out and replace it with -1. On the bottom, same type of thing will happen. We'll combine these like terms. We will cross this I squared out and write -1. So let's write what we have left. We have 8. 4 plus 32 is plus 36i. And positive 16 times -1 is negative 16. All right, on the bottom, we have 16. Positive 8i minus 8i crosses out. And -4 times -1 is positive 4. So let's keep simplifying. We have some like terms we can combine. The 8 and the minus 16, that gives us -8. And then the plus 36i goes after it. On the bottom, 16 plus 4 is 20. So we're almost done. We just have to reduce. So we need to simplify -8 over 20. We can divide both of those numbers by 4. So we'd be left with -2 over 5. That's the real part. It's first, so we're in good shape. Next, we need to simplify these numbers. 36 divided by 20, we can divide both of those by 4. So 36 divided by 4 is 9. 20 divided by 4 is 5. And then don't forget to copy your I after. And that's your final answer. Your final answer on 4D, you should get 7 over 5 plus 1 over 5i, or just I over 5. My hint to you is the complex conjugate you will multiply by on top and bottom will be 2 plus I and 2 plus I. Feel free to FOIL, but if you prefer to do the box method when you are multiplying the two binomials together, that's fine too.